So hi there, my name's Rob McNaught. I'm a senior HR business partner with RB in Hull, and today I'm going to talk to you about interview etiquette. So firstly, what do we mean by interview etiquette? Well, there's a few things really. One is around how do you conduct and behave yourself whilst you're at an interview. It's also not just about focusing on the interview, but also before and after the interview process. One of the key things is you only have one opportunity to make an impact. So it's really, really important that you get that right first. And we will hopefully be able to help you with that in today's presentation. It is all about attention to detail, and you will hear me talk a lot about that in this presentation, but it's something, one of the key things to take away today is do focus on attention to detail. And interview etiquette is such an important area to focus on because it can influence an employer's decision potentially. So before you start the interview, what I've done here is given you a few tips and hints to think about. And some of this may seem very, very simple, but actually as working in HR and having responsibility to conduct interviews, this is where the common things that we see from candidates and that do let them down a little bit. So it's really, really important points to focus on. So the first one, again, as simple as it sounds, is don't be late, is make sure you do the route a couple of days before the interview. And take into consideration traffic. So the traffic is very, very different at different times of the day. There may be roadworks en route and things like that. So it's all I would always say is basically do the routes that you're going to go to the interview, to the company, so that you know where it is, you know what to expect, and then you're not in a panic on the day of wondering where it is and am I parked in the right place, things like that. I would aim to arrive 5 to 10 minutes early. At your location. That's a good time to wait and go through into reception. But if it is earlier than that, all I would say is park up somewhere and just revise and think about interview questions that you may be asked. But also if there's any additional research that you want to do about the organisation, you can do that before your interview. Moving on to appearance now. So the appearance is the first thing that people will see about you. So it's really, really important that you dress appropriately for the role that you're undertaking. If you have been given a dress code, which some employers do, they may say you don't need to come in a suit, which is fine. I would adhere to the dress code, but if not, again, dress smartly and dress professionally for the interview. And again, remember to focus on that attention to detail. Things like any stains on ties and shirts and things like that don't look good. So just make sure that you are maintaining that high standard. Another important thing to bear in mind is something like, is your car clean when you arrive? Because usually interviewers will be in the room a few minutes before you arrive. They may see you pull up to the location, and if your car is absolutely filthy or there's loud music blaring out of it and things like that, again, what impression does that give to an employer? So if you can clean your car before the interview, it does look good. It also shows that you've got high standards. And then moving on to the third element is about being prepared. So make sure you've researched everything about the company. The internet is a great tool for that. There's so much on there, and certainly have a look, not just on the company website, but type the company into Google, see what else comes up from that, and try and get as much information about the organisation as you can. Have your certificates in a professional format. I mean, like the certificates that you have, you should be very proud of because you've worked hard to achieve them. So please put them in some sort of professional format, whether it's a folder or you can actually get record of achievements to put your certificates in. Again, it looks good. It looks that you take pride in them. Also print off any interview confirmation. So any that you're sent on an email, always print it off so that you have that there. And you're able to know who you're going to be asking for upon your arrival, what time you need to be there. There might be some instructions on there as well of how to get to the office or to the location that you're going for the interview. So I would always encourage you to print that out. If you're asked to bring anything specific, make sure you have everything. Again, the interview confirmation should have that, but yeah, please, if you are asked to bring, whether it might be a presentation or some sort of example of work, please make sure you bring it, because again, something you've been asked to is something that you're likely to be discussing in the interview. And then in terms of mobile phones, I would always encourage you to leave your mobile phone in the car or even at home. We always sometimes think that they're on silent or they're switched off, but sometimes they're not, and sometimes they do go off when we don't want them to. The best thing to do is if you can leave it in your car or you can leave it at home, it's not going to disturb you in the interview. So moving on to in terms of arriving, first thing to do is report to reception and always introduce yourself with a smile. A smile goes a long way, it doesn't cost anything, and it shows the type of person that you are, so always ensure that you're smiling. When you're meeting the interviewer, again, smile, introduce yourself, reach out for a handshake. Again, it's that professional etiquette that you want to show. And the interviewer will then obviously take you to the room where the interview is going to take place. When in the interview room, remove your jacket. Again, if you've got an outside jacket on, take that off. You can put that on the back of the chair and place kind of any bags or anything like that on the floor so that they're out the way. What is even better is if you don't bring a coat or a bag, is again, leave those in the car and just bring in what you need, whether that's certificates, whether that's any kind of items that you've been asked to bring. If you are introduced to others, which sometimes you are, sometimes the interviews is a panel of interviewers, greet them as you did before with a smile and a handshake. Be prepared for small talk. So naturally, you will be nervous. The interviewer may be a little bit nervous as well, and they may start asking you things like the weather, how are you today, what's the weather like, how was the journey here, and things like that. So be prepared to answer those small talk questions, and it's about just trying to relax you a little bit. And always keep calm and professional. As we mentioned, you're kind of on show at an interview, so if you remain calm and you remain professional, that's the best way to enter into an interview. Moving into whilst you're in the interview is always sit up straight and always be positive as well. Talk with a positive manner. One thing that is really important is that you listen very carefully to the question that you're being asked and make sure that you answer it. And a lot of time we see as HR professionals that we will ask a question and a lot of the individuals don't necessarily answer it. So therefore, make sure you are answering that question and make sure you're not going off on a tangent. Things like maintaining eye contact with the individual who has asked the question is important. It shows that you're directing your answer to them and you're listening as well. Also think about your body language. What is that saying about you? Your body language, and we're going to talk about this on the next slide, is really, really important. And what is that body language saying about you? Show that you're interested. So again, this is around nodding your head when talking to you, making sure that you're having that eye contact with the interviewers. Things like disrespecting previous employers or other companies does not go down well at all, and I would avoid it at all costs. People don't like that. So if you have had a bad experience with a previous employer, or you have negative views about other companies, I wouldn't look to bring that in an interview. Do not lie, because you're likely to be found out, whether it's at the interview or later down the line. So whatever you do, please do not lie. Try and keep calm and relaxed, because the more calm and relaxed you are, you'll actually find that you may start to enjoy the interview a little bit, and you may actually build a better rapport with the interviewer. That's really, really important. And the final point on there is there's a difference between confident and being arrogant. A big difference, and therefore make sure that you get the balance right. It's okay being confident, but please don't be careful not to go over into the arrogance camp, because it doesn't look particularly great. So how impactful is body language? So when we look at the way that we communicate, 55% of the way that we communicate is through our body language. So it's really, really important that we use that in an interview. So again, sitting up straight, sometimes using your hands to talk as well is a good way, but nodding and maintaining that eye contact, all of that is really positive body language. So again, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of YouTube videos around body language. I would encourage you to certainly research that and look at some of the videos there, because they are really, really useful. And then moving on to the end of the interview. So the important thing as well is at the end of the interview, you will get the opportunity to ask questions. And I would say definitely ask them. So things you can ask is, how has the role come about? Can you tell me more about the role? What's the future strategy of the company? What are you looking for in a successful candidate? And what are the next steps from the interview? All of these questions are showing that you've got interest, and you're wanting to know more. Again, thanking the interviewers for their time and shaking hands is a real positive step. Again, it's maintaining that professional attitude. And the interviewers will obviously take you back out to reception and say goodbye to you. In terms of correspondence, so how the employer will contact you, it's important to think about your correspondence and how you're coming across. So are you responding like an adult to emails and telephone calls? And again, it's about that professional approach. Are you using the correct language? So please don't use things like text speak or anything like that. And does your email response make sense? Sometimes when we're in a rush and we're sending emails, the grammar doesn't look right, is not right, or the sentence doesn't make sense. So therefore, take your time, think about your response, write it and then reread it and adapt it as required. And that will help ensuring that you've got that high standard and that professional approach that you're wanting to make. So when it all goes wrong, there is a number of ways it can all go wrong, but these are some of the common things that I've put down. So the first one is being late. It doesn't look great. So I say if you can arrive there early, that's really, really great. But also do the route a couple of days before, just so that you're familiar with the surroundings, the roads there. It helps a lot. Mobile phones going off again, it doesn't look good. Even when they're on silent, sometimes they vibrate or flash. So again, the advice is just leave it in the car, out the way. It doesn't matter if it goes off in the car, it's not going to disturb you in the interview. Scruffy appearances, so again, you're wanting to be professional, you've got to look professional as well. So make sure that items of clothing are ironed, make sure there's no stains on there, shoes are polished, all of these simple things, they do go a long way. Grunting when the interviewer introduces themselves, again, you're wanting to build that rapport with the interview. So the more that you can effectively communicate with them, the better rapport you will have with them, and you're probably likely to have a better interview because the conversation will naturally flow. Not telling the truth, again, people do get found out, and again, make is you tell lies, you can't be trusted. That's not the impression you want to give. Not being prepared, again, if you're asked to do things, you're asking to bring something to the interview, please ensure that you do that and that you look prepared. Again, if you have your CV and certificates in a folder, it's easy to refer to, it looks good. So again, please focus on those. Disrespecting others or other organisations, as I've mentioned, it doesn't look great. It's not rated highly at all. It's something that you should avoid. Failing to appear interested in the role as well. Some people have interviewed and they say, well, it's just a job. Well, companies are not just looking for somebody to do a job, they're looking to invest in you as an employee. They want you to work with them for a long period of time, because recruitment costs a lot of money, costs a lot of time as well. So always look interested in the role. And again, asking those questions shows that you're interested. Failure to answer the question is a very common one, as I mentioned. So again, think about how you're going to answer that question, and there's some great models out there in how to answer questions. And again, have a look through those. The STAR one is the common one, which is situation, task, action, and results. So again, if you structure the answers to your question in that format, you're likely to be able to answer the question that's been asked. Making unwanted remarks or trying to be funny, again, doesn't look great. And also being unprofessional just in general doesn't look great as well. So that's when it can go wrong. Some of those are extreme, I appreciate that, but again, it's things to consider. And sometimes, as I mentioned, it's the simple things that actually let a candidate down. So I've obviously been through a lot of information there. I hope it has been useful. There is lots of support out there with interview etiquette. Some on this slide. YouTube is a great source of knowledge, but if there is anything, and again, if you look at any other sites around there, there's loads of them, so please use them. Please do a lot of reading and research, because interviews are tough in general, so it's important that you stand out from that crowd, and that you're remembered for the positive reasons rather than the negative reasons. I'd just like to say thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you the best of luck in the future.